Welcome back to another video with Miss Sweet. Today we are doing a higher walkthrough of the poem Tissue by Imitaz Darker. Firstly, some top tips. Most of these authors within the Power and Conflict anthology want to be deep and meaningful, throwing religious, political, or historical Easter eggs into their work. These are great pieces to pick apart and analyze, and will definitely receive the highest marks if justified correctly. Grab and drink and let's begin. The first sense of the word tissue is usually the biological sense, meaning the material with which living things are made. However, the oldest sense of the word, meaning fabric, and this will be related to its origin in Old French tissue, woven, ultimately coming from Latin textere, meaning to weave. This is the same origin as our modern word text. In one sense, then, we are immediately talking about text as soon as the word tissue is mentioned. The third sense of the word is that of paper, specifically a thin, fine paper used often for wrapping or packing. Ultimately, the title leaves the meaning of tissue ambiguous, that it encompasses many different identities to different people from different places. Tissue is a poem within her Terrorist at My Table series. The series was created after the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers. Darker explores issues of language and identity, how we see other people and how they may see themselves. Darker, growing up within the two contrasting cultures of Scotland and Pakistan, is particularly sensitive to these issues. After the Twin Towers attack, the profile of a typical terrorist was much discussed. For some people, the person was a powerless figure sucked into an extremist and oppressive organization as a response to alienation from Western values. For others, a terrorist was simply a murderer. Darker seems to be saying that in a world of different opinions and perspectives, nothing can be clearly defined or described like the fragility of paper in tissue. The poet employs a metaphor by comparing buildings to paper. The metaphor is ironic, highlighting something strong, such as buildings in comparison to fragile things such as paper. The adverbs easily and the description of the cause as a sigh, a shift, accentuate the delicacy of the balance. It suggests that even a subtle change, as light as a sigh or a shift in the wind's direction, can have a profound impact on the stability of these paper-like buildings. Tissue demonstrates the impermanence of human structures compared to nature. Line 14 to 17 links to Ozymandias. Similarities. Both poems deal with transient aspects of human life. Both are extended metaphors. Both use concrete images for description. Both use metaphor and images of passing time. Differences: Ozymandias is in sonnet form, while Tissue uses 10 stanzas. Shelley uses iambic pentameter throughout, whereas Darker's poem has varied rhythm and shorter lines. Ozymandias is more narrative in style, while Darker layers up images. Both poems highlight the idea that human creations are temporary and subject to decay. In Ozymandias, the once mighty statue lies ruined in the desert, and in Tissue, the comparison of buildings to paper emphasizes their vulnerability to time and external forces. Both poems challenge the illusion of permanence associated with human achievements. In Ozymandias, the inscription on the pedestal ironically claims the permanence of the ruined statue's legacy. In Tissue, the metaphor of buildings as paper underscores the flimsiness of even the most imposing structures. Both poets adopt a critical stance toward human ambition and the desire for immortality through achievements. Ozymandias highlights the futility of seeking permanence through destroyed monuments, and Tissue extends this critique to various human constructions, raising questions about the lasting impact of our endeavors. Ozymandias depicts a ruler's arrogance and the eventual collapse of his empire, demonstrating the transitory nature of power. Both Ozymandias and Tissue present nature as the fundamental and overlooked symbol of power within our world, whilst depicting the efforts of mankind to control or overpower it as futile. The repetition of the sound in the line marks that rivers make, roads, rail tracks, mountain folds, adds a rhythmic quality to the stanza. This alliterative effect contributes to the flow of the poem and can mimic the interconnected and continuous nature of the elements mentioned. The use of enjambment enhances the fluidity of the poem and may symbolize the interconnectedness of the elements being described, such as the river. Here, maps on paper symbolize geopolitical boundaries and the control exercised by those who create and define these borders. The metaphor suggests that seemingly fragile things like paper can wield immense power in shaping the world. Darker describes herself as a Pakistan-born British poet. Perhaps she was referencing the partition of India and Pakistan when she wrote the line about the power of borderlines. Set to take effect on August, the rapid partition led to a population transfer of unprecedented magnitude, accompanied by devastating communal violence, as some 15 million Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims rushed to cross the hastily defined borders before the partition would be complete. Estimates of the number of people who died during the partition range from 200,000 to 2 million. The partition left an indelible mark on the national consciousness of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and its legacy continues to influence the country's citizens to this day. The division of British India into the independent countries of India and Pakistan, according to the Indian Independence Act passed by the British Parliament on July 18, 1947. This devastating section of history came to fruition due to the British decision regarding a boundary on a foreign map. This links to the émigré. Tissue, the identity theme is broadened to encompass the structures created by humans, examining how paper, such as a map, can cause so much displacement and death, but is also made of a fragile piece of paper. In contrast, émigré, the loss is presented through the personification of a city, and the speaker reflects on losing a place. Darker refers to grocery slip or receipt, demonstrates the feeling that power is everywhere because it relates closely to money, arguably the very thing that runs the entire world and perhaps holds more influence and authority than any person can or ever will. Yet, this false sense of security created by paper is easily removed because nature, wind, does not abide by human-imposed guidelines, borderlines, making all efforts to control nature paper-thin. The S phoneme slips from grocery shops, and "say how much was sold" adds a soft and hissing quality to the line, contributing to the overall sound and rhythm of the stanza. Snakes are associated with deception and considered cunning creatures due to the ability to move stealthily and their symbolic representation in various myths and stories. Surah Al-A'raf, 7:17, references Satan tempting Adam and Eve in the form of a snake. Some see the snake in Adam and Eve's story as symbolic of temptation. Temptation is a noun frequently associated with money. In contrast, Surah Al-Isra, 17:60, mentions Moses' staff transforming into a snake as a sign of prophethood. Interpretation by scholars: Moses' staff turning into a snake signifies God's power and validation of Moses' prophethood. This links to how money may also provide power. Snakes are often associated with deception and danger due to their stealthy and unpredictable nature. In various cultures, snakes are symbolic of deceit or treachery. Money can also be associated with deception or risks, especially in financial dealings. Snakes symbolize renewal and change due to their ability to shed their skin. This shedding is often associated with transformation and growth. Significantly, both poems convey the message that power has the ability to change and influence people and their actions. In the opening of Ozymandias, what is immediately apparent is the plethora of negative language detailing Ramesses II's frown, wrinkled lip, and sneer. This is immediately followed by the harsh alliterative C sound of his cold command, reflecting his harsh demeanor and ultimate power to control an empire. Conversely, tissue emphasizes that good can prosper from power. Darker uses tissue as an extended metaphor for human life and describes how power from humans can translate to living tissue and things of high significance and stature like the Quran. Tissue is one of the trickier poems to analyze within the Power and Conflict anthology, so good luck if you decide to choose it. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you found this useful.